So next I'd like to introduce, and I really want to thank Stephanie because she started to paint a very clear picture. I want to encourage Natalie Pates to come back on. I think we've confused Zoom with too much wisdom here because now we see Natalie's image and we're not seeing actual presenter. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful. But I think what we can see without looking too far is that a lot of people right now are taking roles of leadership. You know, we live in a world where sometimes leadership can be broken at a civic or federal, state level. And also sometimes they don't have the information as representatives or politicians to do the work that needs to be done. So I really want to acknowledge all of you who have stepped up and brought so much wisdom to this Soil Summit #1. And there's a lot more events after this. This is not a one-off or a flash in the pan. So with that, I'd like to welcome, I think Carla Machado is here from Soil Domains. And again, we're going to start really getting into the topic now of soil testing, soil remediation. What are we finding? And by no means is this a localized reality. Many places like the Paradise Fire, the Lahaina Fire, even in areas that have flooding, Asheville, North Carolina, and other areas are really suffering from soil toxicity because of what we have decided to consume, to purchase, and to use in our land management, our homes, and our different lifestyles, which now are kind of coming back to haunt us and adding to the negative impact on people and planet. So are you there, Carla? Okay, I'm going to skip over a person or two, and we're going to go to Christine Hinkel. Again, I got to meet Christine Hinkel a while back. She is brilliant in the work that she's doing. She has a legacy of work going all the way back to the Rose Bowl and her work, and of course was one of the people that has been on the ground bringing positive solutions for the land there post the Altadena, the Eaton fire. So welcome, Christine Hinkel. Christine, are you there? I do see a lot of names in the participant list. Sometimes people are using other people's phones or accounts, so apologize. Everyone can hear me, correct?
Yep.
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 Okay, maybe Christine is out making a compost pile somewhere. I'm going to see is Jericho Lambert here, who also has worked on soil testing and written a book with his partner and is doing incredible work to help clean up schools. Are you here, Jericho?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. If you could please come on camera. And I'm going to ask you, it's horrible lighting. I can edit this out, but you have to have better front lighting. And yeah, you have a light right behind your head, and I can't see anything except a very milky image. Can we come back to you in a minute? You'll see. All right, you'll see what it looks. You'll see what it looks like in the video.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is Steve here? Steve Poe here?
I am.
Okay. I'm going to switch over to Steve. He is an amazing solutionary and luminary. He works with regenerative systems and does a lot of work about turning transformation of trash into treasures and other things. We'll come back with our other folks. I will message them right now because it's a busy world and people sometimes forget or they might be having a technical issue. But I'd like to welcome, if you camera, and I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right, Steve Quo.
That's Co.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
I'll start with a little introduction. Hello, my name is Steve. I'm originally from San Francisco in the Silicon Valley. Right now, since the pandemic, I've moved to Las Vegas, but I have a background in electrical engineering, computer science from UC Berkeley. And I've been an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley for most of my life, doing lots of different things, from legal services and most recently in 2015, I had co-founded an AI startup. During the pandemic, around 2023-ish, I got introduced to this company out of South Africa. The company's name is called Phambili, Phambili. And I was at a conference where their I guess it's their head business development guy came up after me, and we are just sharing the things we were up to. I was sharing about a AI project I was working on, and this guy comes in after me and he says, "Hey, so you guys all remember that movie Back to the Future where the DeLorean comes flying in and then the doctor puts in like a banana peel into the car and it has enough power to fly off? Well, we have that." And I found that really funny, so I raised my hand and said, "You have the time machine part or the power part?" And he says, "No, we have the power part. We have a machine that takes trash and turns it into commodities, and some of these commodities could be used for energy." And I said, "Well, that's really interesting. That could be something that's kind of life-changing." And I began to do due diligence on them for about a year and a half now. And now I am in the business of trying to import their machine from South Africa to the US because it does some incredible things. So I'm going to show you a little slide that I drew up here. Uh-oh, I can't. Sharing's not turned on.
I'm
All right.
making it right now. I'm making you the host right now.
Okay. So what I have is a little diagram that I created about how it works because it sounds too good to be true. So without a little bit of a visual, kind of hard to tell. All right, so what you're looking at here is a oversimplified drawing of two pieces of equipment, okay? You got this big feedstock heating tube. Now, feedstock is what you put into it. And what this thing wants to eat, if effectively, is anything that's combustible. So no metals, no glass, no stone or ceramics or anything like that, right? And what we really want this thing to do is eat waste because this world is just overflowing with waste, right? Anywhere you have humans, you have human waste, you have the waste from our packaging, you have waste from fires, right? So what this thing can really do is after a disaster, well, this is one of the things I want to turn it into is after a disaster, you bring one of these machines in, and these machines are pretty big. They're about 10 shipping containers, so 5 long by 2 high. And in these shipping containers is this machine here. You get this feedstock heating tube, right? So you're putting in the, like, say, the wood from a house that kind of burned down, all the charred stuff, all the trash, doesn't matter. You just grind it all up, you put it into here. And what it does is it heats it, okay? And it heats it in a vacuum. And that vacuum is very important because in order to have fire, you need oxygen and fuel, right? So we're going to remove the oxygen. So what then happens? As it goes through this tube and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter through this tube, and actually there's multiple tubes, oils from the material start vaporizing, right? It turns into a vapor. So it's kind of like when you're cooking. If you have different cooking oils, like an olive oil will vaporize or burn at a different temperature than, say, sesame oil, okay? That's just the nature of oil. So same thing's happening in this particular matter, in the wood, if you will. There's different kinds of chemicals and liquids and oils in there, and they're all going to vaporize at different temperatures. So what this machine does is basically it heats it to all the different temperatures, and when these things vaporize, it captures them in these vertical tubes, these cooling systems. What happens when you cool a vapor? It condenses back into a liquid again. So that stuff that sits on the top of your cooking hood. If you use the fan, it gets all greasy and sticky. Well, imagine you could collect all that grease. Okay, and then now what the other side, what this thing can what the spin creates, it breaks it down into a solid, a liquid, and a gas, or multiple solids, liquids, and gases, right? So the gases that come off are things like methane or things that are combustible. Okay, so you can capture all that gas and you can put it into a turbine, and just like a natural gas turbine, and create electricity with it. The the liquids that it comes out with, a lot of that liquid, a lot of that oils can be turned into diesel fuel. The super thick tarry stuff can use to pave streets. And there's also stuff that's kind of water-based, and that's going to be a bunch of nutrient stuff. And their first version of this, or the fourth version of this machine, added all these chemicals into this thing called wood vinegar. Now, wood vinegar has tons and tons of industrial uses. And turns out when you distill wood vinegar, you get things like acetic acid, you get things like furfural, and all these other chemicals that go into all of the different things that we use in life, except they all came from trees, not petroleum. That's kind of game changing, right? That's what I saw, and that's why I wanted to get involved in all of this. Turns out when you sell all those chemicals, if you are in a place where you can sell all those chemicals, this whole system is very profitable. That's been missing from a lot of green solutions in the world, is that because they require a lot of subsidy. I need support from this and this and this company, or I need carbon credits in order to make this work so I can pay my staff so they can pay the rent. Well, these machines, they make enough money by themselves without any assistance from the government or any donations from any nonprofits. So that's another huge game changer. So what I want to do is bring these machines into the US. And right now we're looking at, there's some field trials going on. What we're trying to do is put these things in front of landfills. So you can imagine the garbage truck comes in, dumps out all the trash out of the truck. It goes onto a bunch of conveyor belts, and there's these trash sorting systems that I've found out of Turkey, uses AI and cameras and all these things, and it basically sorts it out 90% accuracy, which is good enough for these machines. And then each sorted stream of waste now can go through these machines, and maybe someday we don't even need landfills anymore. Wouldn't that be cool, huh? The final bit here, which is very relevant to this conversation, is that it can be used to clean dirt. Okay, it can be used to clean tailings from mines, right? So coal mines, you get all this stuff that's coal, and you get all this stuff that's not coal, and all the stuff that's not coal sits either in a landfill or in a waste pile off to the side, polluting the environment. And that waste pile is kind of like what happens after a fire, and the fire department comes in and sprays all their foams and everything, puts all that fire down. Now you have this soupy mess of yuck. And that's what's getting bulldozed into the ground, which we don't want to do. We want to put all that stuff through this machine. And what we can do is we can recover all those chemicals, pull all that stuff out of the dirt. And what you end up with solid wise out of this machine, right? Everything comes out with a gas, a liquid, and a solid. The solids are biochar. And I think there's going to be other people here talking about biochar. But biochar is basically, just think of it as high purity carbon. It's that stuff in your water filter that when you pull it out, the water filter's draining water. That stuff inside that filter is basically what this machine puts out. And on the scale of 10 tons a day, one machine eats 36 tons of feedstock a day. So let's ground this into something useful here. If we wanted to remediate soil on a half-acre plot of land, okay, on a house, right? There was a house standing here, and now it's just a burned down mess. If we could take a bulldozer and just kind of scrape off the top foot of soil from that whole lot, grind it all up and put it through this machine, in about 3 weeks, we'd be able to process all of that soil, have it sent to the lab to make sure that it's still it's clean, and it can be put right back into that lot, and you can grow crops in it, you can grow grass on it, and it's totally safe again. That's the vision. We are about 6 months to 9 months to getting one of these machines into the States. There's actually lots of negotiations right now going on. There's lots of trials. There's one in Hesperia. There's a landfill out in Hesperia that we want to try to put this into. We're raising money. If that's of interest to anybody on this call also, in order to get these machines here. And I just wanted to I'm in the business now of not kind of announcing to the world that this technology exists. Okay. So in a nutshell, this thing can take trash, waste, anything that you can burn, and turn it into a saleable commodity. This thing makes no waste by itself either. It doesn't burn anything. It doesn't waste anything. Everything that comes out the other side is a saleable commodity, or it's a contaminated biochar, right? So what do you do when it's contaminated biochar? Well, that actually has commercial value too. You just got to do some stuff to it too first. You might be able to pull the arsenic that's out of there, that's left in there from all the fire. You could, if there's cadmium, lead from paint, if there's, asbestos and stuff like that, all that stuff can get collected up by these machines and concentrated into basically what looks like soil. And then you can move all that stuff off into some treatment facility, or you can figure out some industrial uses for that stuff too. Or it gets buried beneath the topsoil, which is kind of what happens at a landfill nowadays. Are there any questions? That was a lot.
We're gonna have people post questions in the chat, and we're gonna do questions at the end, please.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So that in essence is this technology. It's portable. It's 10 shipping containers, so you can basically find a parking lot to drop this thing down into, and then you set it up. It takes about 3 days to get set up and then cleaned out, and you operate it, and it has to take the same feedstock for per machine, right? And the cool part is, though, if you actually do need to switch it, you can shut it down, take a day to clean it out, run the new stuff through it to make sure it's okay, and then start the new one. So you can switch what this thing processes, and it takes about 2 days to take it down and reset it. This couldn't take plastic also, by the way. You can just load it up with 36 tons of plastic, and it turns it into fuels and renewable commodities out the other side effectively. So it is it's an invention.
Game changer.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It's an invention that's built on, decades of other technologies. This kind of thing was tried around the early 2000s and it didn't work out. And 20 years later, now somebody cracked the code in South Africa. So here we are, and we're going to be entering into a new world of a waste-free circular economy. So that's the future I'm standing in.
Amazing. Thank you, Steve. I want to encourage people to please post in the chat. We can have communication going there, but at the same time, we want to keep the production high of our presenters. So I'm going to come back to Jericho Lambert in a minute, but I see Christine Hinkel is here. So I want to invite Christine Hinkel, who is in Altadena and even before the event yesterday has been doing biological soil testing and his work around post-fire biological treatment. So Steve, thank you so much. We're going to be posting the Alliance for Regenerative Communities in there because we're trying to, along with C3OX and others, to really make sure we have this incredible resource directory. So thank you. And welcome Christine Hinkel, who's going to be presenting about her work on the ground there in Altadena.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for the introduction. Interesting stuff, Steve. Haven't met you yet, but would very much like to connect. Would I have sharing opportunity as well?
I'm doing that right now.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess I'll just do a self intro. I have, what, about 10 minutes or so? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'll make it short and sweet. My name's Christine Hinkel. I'm the founder and principal consultant at 301 Organics, previously known as Waste Less Living for some of the participants on the call. I'm an environmental scientist, analyst, and a planner for over 20 years now. Turned eco soils entrepreneur and master soil steward since the fires. But prior to the Eaton fire and LA Palisades fire, I was deeply entrenched in the organics recovery, organics management, composting, and sustainable landscape world and space. I guess I'm probably most known for my tenure, or 8 years at least, with the Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena, heading up their organics recovery, their food waste recovery, green waste management diversion program, and setting up their very own composting operation to produce their very own soil amendment, which everyone knows me as a champion for compost as an alternative chemical fertilizer alternative. That is what we were on a trajectory with the Rose Bowl Stadium to get them to transition away from using high intense inorganic soil inputs, soluble fertilizers on both their field, their athletic field, their rose gardens, the landscaping around the concourse, as well as the soccer fields and the 190-acre golf course that was right next door. Also part of the footprint and campus that we were responsible for helping get compliant with SB 1383, which was the law that was passed in 2016, believe it or not, now 10 years ago, in an attempt to keep organics, food waste, and green waste out of the landfill because of its impact on greenhouse gas emissions coming out of landfills in the form of methane. So, 8 years at the Rose Bowl Stadium, we had the privilege and honor of conducting numerous trials of the compost we were making, producing various supplemental products out of it, like the compost extracts, compost teas, and applying that on various landscaped areas around the campus to demonstrate and give the superintendents over at the golf course and at the Rose Bowl Stadium the assurance that taking a biological approach to soils management and landscape management was the way to go on account of needing to manage and better drill down on the cost effectiveness of their current practices and the way that they were managing their resources. Now, my background is in forestry. I have a Master of Science in Forestry, very soils heavy related, but also an emphasis on international resource conservation and resource management. And despite the international side of that study, resources, natural resources are natural resources, whether it's water, air, and increasingly, thankfully, now people are paying more attention to soils as a resource that we need to protect because we are just decimating it both in our urban sector as well as in the agricultural sector with our reliance on these artificial and chemically heavy inputs. So, with that said, after all the trials that we were doing and showing great promise with our results of the compost we were making from all the food scraps and green waste we were recovering from the stadium at these large events, and then also trialing various different types of machinery that purported to be composting machines or food waste processing machines, and seeing what we can get out of them if they were indeed comparable to the biologically diverse compost that we were already making on a commercial scale at the stadium itself. So we had our foot and hand in both worlds, both the mechanical processing of organics and then the more natural nature's way approach using soil microbes and biology to actually do the job that they were intended to do, right? Rather than having the materials be heated up and then to a point where those microbes were getting killed off. Because those machines can really get to very, very high temperatures and kill off a lot of the beneficial microbes that are really responsible for transforming this material into a soil, an actual soil amendment that both comprises the living and the non-living portion of the ground to be suitable for planting of not just your permanent landscaping, but also for treating contaminated soils. So when COVID hit, we had to pivot and we dove deep into the testing and trials space and the machinery testing. And then when the fires hit, we just had to. We had to pivot 100% and provide this level of knowledge and data and information and provide the services to the community where the need was so very, very great. So all the trials we did, all the techniques and the processes that came out of the Rose Bowl Stadium, we are applying, to Altadena. And the reason why I'm 100% committed to Altadena is because it is my hometown. It is where I was born and raised. I boarded my horse up in Altadena for 15 years. I raised my kids in Altadena. This is personal and professional, a decision I made, to stick with it and then just be of service however I could, to keep the costs down, to keep the technology at the forefront of people's mind, which in my book is a very low-tech technology. You can't beat nature. You really can't. We have to live in harmony and in balance with the soldiers in the ground, I've been calling them. And so few of us know or even have this understanding about the soil ecosystem. You know, in academia, it's referred to as soil biodiversity. My training, specific training, comes from the Soil Food Web School and Dr. Elaine Ingham, who just recently passed. But they're one and the same. Soil biodiversity is the same as soil food web, and those principles are the basis for our technology and what we are leaning on very, very heavily in the work that we do in the Eaton Fire Zone. We're not exclusive to the Eaton Fire to Altadena, but that's where the greatest need is, in my opinion, just because of the diversity of demographics involved. And we have had great results. We were the first on the ground in February to collect soil samples. We knew that we were removed enough physically to be able to focus well ahead of where others were at in this space. And so all the data we collected over the past year, it's a sizable data now where we can see some normalcy and trends. And actually, if I may, if I still have some time, to actually share those results in a snapshot very quickly. So we have been focusing on bioremediation. This is one of the slides that we included in our webinar with jointly in collaboration with the Eaton Fire Residents United group. They have a recording, a full-blown recording of this presentation, but we are, like I said, pivoting to this space of bioremediation. That's the term now, right? But before it was soil biodiversity, but to really target, contaminants in the soil. And over the course of the year, we were able to put in place a very streamlined process for folks because time was of the essence. And now it's even more of an essence for rebuilding purposes. Within 3 weeks' time, we can get some results back to show if our treatments are actually working, if we're on the trajectory of seeing biology go up, and whether the chemistry is going down. And out of the 42 sites that we actually were able to collect post-treatment data on and able to analyze by the end of the year, the 37 sites that had that data, that post-treatment data, we were able to drill down and get these types of results. So looking at arsenic and cadmium, chromium, cobalt, lead, all of them went down. When we looked at those 37 sites, 78% of them had a positive response to our biological treatment. Cadmium, 76 of those sites were reported lowering in their levels. For chromium, it was 78, cobalt 76, lead 68. And in these, the 3 Cs, I call them, for analytes, the change in that reduction was upwards of 80%. So it's pretty profound. It's promising. Of course, over the next for the next year, that data set will continue to grow, and we'll continue to provide some more evidence whether or not this trend continues to hold up. But the changes in Altadena are changing. There's a lot of cross-contamination happening. But if I want to talk about the biology, this 67% that we saw over here, right? This 68, 67, I was conservative. That should be 67. As these contaminants went down, we were also seeing the trend of the microbes going up. They were populating. They were establishing themselves. So it was a very exciting thing to report on at the end of the year. This report is published on the county public health fire dashboard, so you can read much if you're a technical person that likes the narrative and the backstory and the history and even more numbers. Then go to that report, or you can go to our website and you could download the report. It's right on the front page of the website. And I'll stop there.
Great, thank you so much. And now I know who Chin was on the Dred, a lot of the names I'm seeing again in the participants aren't the names I know folks by. But Christine Lenches-Hinkel, thank you so much for the incredible work that you're doing again with biological soil testing and biological post-fire treatments. So we're going to go on to EFRU here in just a minute with Jane Lawton Potelle from the Eaton Fire Residents United, because both of you, again, you've taken your background, your passion, and are applying it to this situation that's still playing Jericho, Lambert. Now, for those of you who are just joining, this is the Soil Summit Series, Part 2. Yesterday, we had our actual on-location event at the land of Greg Apodaca, the founder and director of C3OX. And we had an amazing afternoon with hands-on workshops, panels, and presentations. And today, we have some of you back, but we also are joined by other professionals and, of course, all of you who are here as participants to hopefully get some information, some wisdom, but also the value of getting real-world contacts with people that might be beneficial in you helping to live a more regenerative, sustainable, green, healthy lifestyle. Now, even before the fires happened, Jericho had been doing a lot of work around the soil, and his partner had written a book, and they were doing a lot of work. But without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Jericho Lambert.
Hey guys.
You there?
Yeah, I think so. Is my video working better now?
Yes.
Much better.
All right, cool. Hey guys, I'm Jericho. I'm not good at all the intros and stuff. I'm actually kind of nervous, but yeah, I'm more of a doer. I grew up in Long Beach. I graduated from Poly, and I started working for LVUSD around I think 2008, 2009. And I was started out interning and working as an environmental consultant. And I noticed like it was pretty boring at first because like during the training, I just had to go to a lot of meetings, and my boss would make me like do all these meetings, and I didn't understand. And then finally it clicked one day. I noticed a pattern. I was like, wait, how come every school, park, and like track home, like they're all built on contaminated soil? Like they literally just get dirt, make a dump, wait a few years, throw some dirt on top and build on top of it. And yeah, so I started noticing that. And then I think around when I was like 25, yeah, I bought my first property up north in Northern California. And I was there for about 8 or 9 years. We had I think 5 fires like every year in a row. We had like a fire, the Butte fire. There was a bunch of fires, and yeah, and then I ended up becoming like known as pretty much Joe Dirt up there because I was cleaning up everybody's soil. I took all the knowledge from the school district and took it up there with me, and yeah, I just started cleaning everybody's dirt. I was bringing in dirt. I shipped in dirt from Washington. I shipped in dirt from Oregon. I shipped in dirt from wherever I could get it. I was just bringing in really good dirt. And one of the things, well, I got the property. One was because I thought the world was going to end in 2012. And so we were like, yeah, we have a bug out place. And yeah, so we started, growing a bunch of vegetables. I did grow a bunch of cannabis also, of course. I wouldn't have been able to afford that property if I didn't. And we ended up getting licensed in Calaveras County. And because I worked for the school district, I knew how to, do all the planning department stuff, all the coding, and do all the grading and all that. Like, yeah, I had my own loader, so I did all the dirt work myself. And yeah, I was driving around literally selling dirt to people. It was pretty cool. And yeah, and I mean that dirt's still up there and it's still great. Yeah, but I think think with the Altadena stuff, like it's a trip. I have a few friends that lost their homes out there, and when Chianti he told me about how they were doing the testing, and yeah, they're not really testing. They're testing just beneath the home site, so they can just build a build a home on top of dirty dirt, and then everything around it, all the leaching and all that stuff from all the rains. Nobody has really done, a full. I'm not sure how thorough everybody is, but I think the community and the people of Altadena, I'm glad they're actually everybody is like so involved, and this is like community like that. That's the only way you're gonna see these governments change, because it's kind of it's pretty sad what they're trying to do. I know I saw that they were gonna like increase payments so people can do more stuff, do more cleaning. But yeah, I think the I just yeah that guy Steve, that new process for cleaning soil, that's big. I'd definitely like to know a lot more about that. Usually mediation is we do excavation.
And you also, Jericho, you also did some work before with your partner, and she put out a book about helping to clean up some of the
Oh
schools.
yeah, and yeah, all my work for LBUSD, worked on 11 schools. We built like I did the methane system for Signal Hill Elementary. Yeah, because I mean, I'm pretty sure every school like in LAUSD also is just it's built on contaminated soil. A lot of these homes are just the government's not going to do anything unless people like us can get things done. But yeah, sorry you guys, I'm not that good at talking. I didn't really prepare too much. I had family emergency last night, so yeah, I'm just glad to be here and be able to assist in any way I can.
Well, as you know, this regenerative movement is transgenerational, so we appreciate your voice. It's maybe one of the more younger people on this broadcast today, the work that you're doing, and you're taking an interest in health for your family, your kids.
Yeah,
And so we appreciate your voice being heard.
Yeah, 40 years old. I've seen a good amount at such a young age, so I'm here.
And we appreciate you being there yesterday with your drone and getting footage over the burn area that we'll be incorporating into the film. Camera? Great. All right, we're going to pivot now.
Yep.
Speaking about community activism, speaking about getting involved, we're going to introduce our next speaker. And about fires, we think about homes that are burnt, soil contamination, but little we think about some of the contamination that happens from homes that are still standing. So our next presenter, Jane Lawton Potelle from EFRU, or Eden Fire Residents United, really started a whole movement regarding remediation and awareness about health impacts of standing structures. And I know she's involved in a lot of things, and she's been learning a lot about insurance and the way things happen with local government and organizations. I'd like to welcome to our broadcast. Are you there, Jane?
Yeah, but I'm losing you, Michael. So I'll just go ahead and segue in. Okay, great. You all can hear me all right?
We can hear you, Jane.
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you so much for having me here today to speak, Michael. I really appreciate it. EFRU stands for Eden Fire Residents United. And we always want to embrace every opportunity we can to interface with the public and let you all know about what our organization does and how we hope to continue helping our community recover from the Eden Fire. With that, Michael, I'd like to be able to share my slides. Hopefully you're able to do that.
Yeah, you're all set to.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share. Give me one moment. Hopefully this is coming up. Looks like I'm loading. Okay. Okay.
This is where post-production becomes handy. So you feel free to start.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. So again, thanks for having me here today. I'm going to give you a shortened presentation of what we usually do, because I know we only have about 15 minutes or so or less. But today we're going to cover indoor fire contamination results for pre and post remediation. While many homes did not burn, they were inundated with toxic ash carried in carried in the smoke by the wind, impacting residents miles away from the fire itself. You know what? I'm going to put this on presentation so that we can see my full screen. It's loading.
Again, I want to remind people this will be edited, cleaned up, and also through Earthstock and C3OX.
Okay, thank you, Michael. All right, I'm gonna start again now that I'm in full screen. Indoor fire contamination results pre and post remediation, February 2026, from Eaton Fire Residents United. While many homes did not burn, they were inundated with toxic ash carried in the smoke by the wind, impacting residents miles away from the fire itself. Eaton Fire Residents United is a coalition of concerned residents formed in the wake of the devastating Eaton Fire of 2025. Our mission is to ensure a safe, just, and transparent public health recovery process for the Eaton Fire affected community. Through community organizing, public engagement, and education, we champion a resilient and empowered Altadena, Pasadena, and Sierra Madre. We promote thorough testing, clear remediation guidelines, insurance accountability, and an universal distribution of resources for impacted businesses and residents, including children, homeowners, renters, insured, and uninsured. EFRU Data Science Committee. Members of this committee are all scientists who are local residents with standing homes impacted by the Eaton Fire with smoke damage. It includes JPL employees, forensic scientists, and USC professors. And it is led by EFRU Director of Data Science and Educational Outreach, Dr. Nicole Machado. Dr. Nicole Macalla's professional background: she's a Director of Evaluation and Improvement for the Southern California Clinical and Translational Science Institute, faculty at USC Rossier School of Education. She's been a data scientist with 25 years experience in research, regularly managing multi-million-dollar federal studies in education and public health initiatives. And her educational background is a PhD and MA in education from UCLA, studying social research methodology and program education, a BA in economics and liberal and civil studies from St. Mary's College of California, and has research certifications, social behavioral human subjects, and research HIPAA, research best practices for clinical research. And all of this is important to say. Although EFRU is a resident-led organization, we do have a team of scientists who review all of our data and are responsible for having all of this information that we map onto a public database, which I will be sharing with you very shortly. Oops. Okay, so EFRU, we have currently the largest published database of indoor contamination in a post-fire environment in the entire country. We have over 71,000 views on our EFRU pre-remediation contamination map. We have had over 18 speaker events with over 1,500 attendees and 2,000 views. I think that's out of date at this point. We have over 60 news stories based on our work, both national and international. We have 2,700 residents who receive our EFRU weekly newsletter. We're more than happy to join our newsletter if you'd like. I can give you details on that later in the presentation. The EFRU members run the health and safety channel of a 5,500 member EFSN Discord. We have 8 academic institution collaborations with Caltech, Purdue, Harvard, UCLA, UC Davis, UC Irvine, USC, University of Texas. We are a member of the LA Fire Health Consortium, Environmental Health Impacts, WGLADPH, and Soils Working Team of LA County Environmental Health. Leadership team of the Fire Resilient Bioremediation Landscape Recovery Consortium. We're partnered with over 40 community organizations, and EFRU members lead the Health and Safety Committee and the Smoke Remediation Committee of the Eaton Fire Collaborative, the long-term recovery group. In fact, I am the chair of that organization. Today's agenda will be having an orientation to EFRU's Eaton Fire contamination maps, pre and post, and go over what we know about post-WUI indoor contamination. How bad is it? How is it improving? What are the implications and recommendations? So Eaton Fire was a wildland-urban interface, a WUI, also known as a WUI fire. This is really important because we see the word wildfire used quite frequently around the Eaton Fire. And in fact, and I think it's been mentioned by other presenters here today, it wasn't really a wildfire at all. It was a WUI. What is a WUI? A WUI is a chemical fire where the main fuel of the fire was not trees and bushes, which usually constitutes a wildfire. The main contributors to the fire, or what burned in the fire, was man-made materials. And these pose significant dangers to human health. They release more toxic emissions into the air than fires burning natural vegetation. They're closer to populated areas. And in the case of the Eaton Fire, it burned 14,021 acres, or a 22 square mile area. That's the second largest, well, we should say not second largest, but maybe the second most destructive wildfire in California history. 19 people died, 9,400 structures, well, 9,418 structures were destroyed, and 90% of the Altadena homes were built prior to 1978. And as we know, there were 100 miles an hour winds that night. So all that to say, this was an incredibly destructive fire, an incredibly dense fire. Even the Paradise Fire, which burned 18,000 structures, that spanned 153,000 acres. This was only 14,000 acres with 9,400 structures that burned. So that is a really, really dense WUI. And we like to say, well, where did all of the burn go? Where did it, it didn't just disappear. It went somewhere, right? So what we need to be asking is it safe? Is our area safe to live in now that this fire has happened? Well, I should say, going back to this, these are the two aerial shots taken around January 9th, which is 2 days after the fires, for both the Palisades on the left and on the right is the Eaton Fire. Okay, so EFRU's role in the Eaton Fire contamination is we are tracking the pre-remediation of standing homes. What were homes hit with as far as contamination? And we mapped the peak levels inside each home. Residents have been sending us in their industrial hygienist reports, where they hire professionals to come in and test their home for contamination that may have infiltrated their home due to the Eaton Fire. And we have been tracking what those peak levels are around windowsills, hard surfaces, garage floors, HVACs, and such. And these tests are all coming from 100% licensed professional testing companies. No one's sending in tests where they do their own swabs from tests that they buy at Home Depot. That's not happening here. This is all professional licensed testing company reports that have been sent in to EFRU. They all have certified laboratory and chain of custody. 100% of homes in the Eaton Fire affected communities include Altadena, Pasadena, Sierra Madre. And roughly 50% of the homes are inside the burn zone, and the other half are at least 250 yards from the nearest burn structure and or reside in the ash zone, which you saw earlier pictures of those ash zones from an aerial map. Damage to the lot, yard, or home was reported in only about 40% of these cases, and 78% of the homes were professionally remediated, while 22% of the homes were do-it-yourself following a wildfire cleanup remediation. And we'll look into that when we see our post-remediation map. Why is it important to examine contaminants in homes? Well, many contaminants can be released from WUIs and travel far distances. Some toxins pose greater health risks than others. We spend a lot of time in our homes and are at greater risk of chronic exposure inside. Multiple routes of possible exposure from inhalation, ingestion, eye and skin contact. Look, when you live inside a contaminated home, it's living inside you because you can't avoid having it come inside your lungs, live in your body. You know, you touch your counter, you eat. It's going to be ingested if your home is not properly cared for. And then dose and strength. If there is repeated exposure over time, toxins can accumulate in the body. Individual sensitivity. Many of us have vulnerable populations living in our homes, including babies, toddlers, young children, elderly, immunocompromised, and have health complications. Toxic exposure leads to sickness and death. Information about contaminants in our community can also guide research, policy, and practice, informing family medicine, public health departments, insurance companies, and elected officials for action. Okay, so here we have our pre-remediation map. And what's important to note here is that we currently have 259 tests showing 100% contamination. Every single icon that you see here does list contamination. Lead is the leader. The gray spots are those homes that did not test for lead, but the majority of homes did test for lead, and that's why that is the leader. If you were to go to our website, which is www.efru.la, you would see that clicking on these icons allow you to see a whole host of other contaminants from the full range of CAM17 metals, as well as lithium and asbestos. But every single home is either testing positive for some kind of contaminant, whether that be ash, soot, and char, or all 17 of CAM17 metals, or lithium, or asbestos. And what we found is that 222 of the standing homes that were tested for lead, 100% were positive. And you can see from this wheel the levels of contamination that we're looking at. At this point, no home tested for lead is safe to inhabit. No level of lead dust. We're not talking about lead chips here. We're talking about lead dust, which is much, much more dangerous to live with in a home, because lead chips have to be touched for you to have some kind of exposure, whether that means that it stays on your skin for a bit or you touch your mouth. But lead dust, you don't even have to touch to be affected by. You could have a slight breeze in your home and you could suddenly breathe it in. You don't have to touch the lead dust to have it affect you. And that's what's so concerning about it. So as you can see, most homes are well above the EPA thresholds, some as much as 5,000 times. And here the LA Times listed a great article on all the CAM17 metals and what kind of diseases each one of these metals can cause in a dust form if they're found in your home. This here is our post-remediation map, and we don't have quite as many mapped as we do on our pre-remediation. That is because a lot of folks are still struggling to get their post-remediation tests done. Insurance has been less than supportive of many folks getting post-remediation testing done. Testing is expensive, and this is why we recommend that you file a claim with your insurance company if you have a standing home in order to get your testing paid for. However, just because you do that doesn't necessarily mean your insurance is going to be willing. However, they are obligated to do it. Folks are still struggling, though, to get their insurance to cover the cost of their post-remediation testing. In many cases, insurance companies are sending in their own industrial hygienists now to test because they want to perhaps show secondary data on the levels of contamination that are still in homes. They're contesting what independent industrial hygienists are putting forth. It seems to be pretty much consistent that insurance companies are coming in with industrial hygienists that are reporting much less levels of contamination inside standing homes, whether it be pre or post. This is why we really recommend people file a claim, but insist on hiring your own industrial hygienist to test, even if your insurance company, insists on hiring their own contractor. You still need to hire yours. Under the state of California insurance code, they cannot deny your independent industrial hygienist tests and choose their contractor's results over your independent industrial hygienist test. Insurance code will, if taken to court, the insurance does have to recognize the higher value, whichever it is. And the important thing to know is, out of this post-remediation results that we found, that 36% of the homes after remediation were still showing positive for asbestos, and 96% were still showing positive for lead. And remember, no level of asbestos is safe, especially asbestos dust inside of a home, and certainly no level of lead dust is safe in a home either. So this is important to know. And why is this so? Why are we still finding contaminants inside homes after remediation? Well, first we'll touch on the fact that 96% of homes are still testing positive for lead. We can see here on windowsills what we're seeing here. 50% are over threshold on windowsills, and 89% are still positive for lead on windowsills. Floors, 63 are over threshold, and 83% are still positive for lead. And so these are quite concerning numbers. Asbestos, here we see that many homes were at, for pre-remediation, 19% were positive for asbestos. And then in post, we're actually seeing higher numbers of 36%. And that's really concerning. As was mentioned by one of the other presenters earlier, we are seeing cross-contamination happening. This may be occurring because soil is still contaminated, and that may be tracking in some of this contamination. We know that there was a lot of concrete crushing happening in the community for a good 6 months at the golf course by the Army Corps of Engineers, and that put a lot of dust into the air and continued circulating it for a number of months. We know the AQMD tracked asbestos 6 times in their air monitors throughout Altadena during this concrete crushing time, and that dust settles somewhere, and it can go inside standing homes. So all of these things may be contributing to why the contamination level for asbestos increased inside homes in post-remediation testing. And it may also be that many folks didn't get pre-remediation testing and just hired companies that were not certified for lead or asbestos to get their homes remediated, and therefore they didn't have the right experience or the right materials in order to do the cleanup appropriately, or I should say abatement appropriately inside homes. And this puts the workers at risk who are not qualified to do this type of cleanup. And obviously it does not get the home back to safety. So any of these reasons may be why we're seeing more asbestos inside homes in post-remediation than we are seeing in pre-remediation. This slide basically says, look, 89% of the homes still testing positive for asbestos were professionally remediated. Chrysotile asbestos is being found in interior floors and windowsills, in the attic HVAC systems, and on garage floors. On average, there were 8,623 chrysotile structures across the peak samples. EPA benchmark for voluntary actions settled dust is 5,000 square centimeters. Professional abatement is required. EPA's asbestos hazard emergency response requires clearance levels for school air and samples is 70 structures per cubic centimeter. If dust is disturbed, it becomes airborne. Comprehensive WUI clearance testing does need to be done in schools as well, because unfortunately, none of the schools in PUST have gotten any testing for asbestos or lead. They had no pre-remediation testing done before the PUSD schools sent in a crew to clean up ash, soot, and char, and tested for only ash, soot, and char in post-remediation testing. And we know now that even if you clean up the ash, soot, and char, these contaminants of lead, asbestos, and the other 17 Chem17 metals, including lithium as well, can still remain because they're nanoparticle levels, and just wiping up a surface is like hiring, a company that's unlicensed to do lead and asbestos cleanup. You really need to test for lead and asbestos to know whether or not you are hiring the right remediation company to have the qualifications to do this kind of cleanup, to have the right equipment, to have the right experience, and then test after remediation or abatement to make sure that those nanoparticle chemicals were in fact cleaned up. And as you know now, many of the cases we're seeing, they were not properly cleaned up.
And just to ask really quick while we have a minute left here, you're also finding contamination out of the burn scar, because I know usually people think this is the burn scar, this is what burned, that's where contamination is, but can you share with the last minute just that this is affecting a whole region, not just people that were directly affected, even if they still have standing homes outside the burn scar?
So thank you, Michael. I did specify that earlier on in the presentation that only 40% of our data was coming from inside the burn zone. That means another 60% is outside the burn zone. So it's really important that you get your home tested. Caltech believes this goes 7 miles. So you do need to get your home tested. If you found any type of ash, soot, and char inside your home after the fire, if you cleaned it up yourself, this does not mean that the nanoparticles are gone out of your home. You are still living in it. You are still exposing yourself to it. Children, pets, elderly are most vulnerable, and it's accumulative. So it may take time before you start seeing people feeling sick in your household. So this is really important to do sooner than later. One last thing I do want to say before we end here is that many people have the wrong type of asbestos testing done in their homes. They did PLM, PCM, ACM, or ASTM testing for asbestos, thinking that perhaps that was conclusive enough to find out whether or not they had asbestos. Really, the appropriate version of asbestos testing is TEM. It is 20,000 times more sensitive than any of these other versions of testing. And many people have found that, in fact, once they went back to their homes and tested for TEM after doing any of these other models of testing, found that they had a fair amount of asbestos still in their homes. So I'll just quickly move over here to just say what our findings summarized was that only 4 out of 10 homes were safe to return to. 6 out of 10 homes remain uninhabitable after remediation because remediation was just not done properly inside homes, or there may be cross-contamination that is happening inside homes. All of this to say that these are the type of contaminants, these are the type of, health effects that you may have on a short-term basis. Headaches, respiratory problems, skin and eye irritation, chest pain, nausea, vomiting, asthma, reduced liver function, fungal infections, strange taste in mouth, compromised immune system. And then these are the long-term diseases. And this is what's really going to be concerning and we will see developing in the next 2 to 5 years if people do not get their homes properly remediated. Lung inflammation, difficulty breathing, chronic headaches, gastrointestinal, cardiovascular, immunological, pancreatic, liver and kidney disease, reproductive problems, damage to babies, in utero, neurological symptoms, especially in children and the elderly. So I won't go too much further into the rest of these, but what you need to do if you've got a standing home, it's really, really important that you get your home tested. If you have insurance, file a smoke claim, damage claim. United policyholders can help you with that if you go to their website. Demand clearance before occupancy, that you deserve a home free of WUI fire contaminants. And you should not be forced to return home until all toxins have been remediated or cleared to a level that is safe for inhabitation. If you've already, you've never left your home or you've already returned home, we really, really want to advocate for you to get pre-testing done to guide remediation. Hire asbestos and lead certified remediation companies. Advocate for post-remediation testing to establish habitability with CAM17 and TEM asbestos testing, as well as you may want to consider PAHs, cyanide, lithium, dioxins, and furans in post. It's more important that you get more testing done in post. Pre-remediation testing is just to guide what type of certified remediation company you should hire, but the post is what's going to tell you whether or not your home is fully cleared from contaminants. Be prepared to demand additional remediation rounds until clearance thresholds of contaminants have been reached. If you're a renter, demand that your landlord follow the law and complete effective smoke remediation. You have a right to habitability. There's a law called SB 610 that protects you. And if you're a renter, insist on seeing clearance results from your landlord for post-remediation testing before moving back into a new place. File a complaint with the Department of Insurance if experiencing difficulties with your insurance. We all deserve a safe return. And then finally, follow EFRU progress in tracking indoor contamination and status of indoor remediation at www.efru.la. Encourage others with standing homes to file a smoke damage claim in order to get their homes tested. Share your tests with EFRU to increase the power of our collective voice to guide recovery efforts. If you come to our website, you can see part of our menu, share testing, and you can upload your test there. That's how we're able to track this information and advocate for the community. And then follow the developments of AB 1642. This is a bill carried by Assemblymember Herabedian to establish indoor contamination thresholds beyond lead and establish protocols on testing, including where to test, how to test, and how many samples to take. EFRU is helping to develop this bill. And this affects all of our schools, our library, and other public spaces. So even if you have a home that is a total loss, it is important to support this bill so that our public spaces get the proper remediation that they deserve. Check out our educational speaker events at www.efrula/speaker-events. Some of our particular videos that people take a lot out of from is taking legal action against your insurer when they are not testing appropriately your home. Purdue guidance on sampling and testing, EFRU's presentation on indoor contamination levels after remediation, which are much more thorough and being presented by the lead of our data science team and education, Dr. Nicole Machado. And then finally, smoke damage and the path forward, which was a presentation by insurance litigator Kevin Pollack of Axe Law, who did a full presentation for the California Smoke Claims Remediation Task Force on behalf of the policyholder. Very, very informative to tell you what your rights are. And with that, I will wrap it up and turn the meeting back over to Michael.